When love feels like a trap and your husband might be holding the keys to your coffin.
Welcome back to Booby Trap Podcast, Wine, Films, Murder, where we uncork vintage cinema and pour it with a twist of murder. I'm Amy Mellons.
And I'm Tata Baps. Tonight's pairing, Suspicion, 1941, a glass of sparkling romance with just a hint of cyanide.
Tonight's pairing, is a tall, dark stranger, a Malbec from Mendoza, Argentina. The name is a chef's kiss. Tall, dark stranger mirrors Johnnie Aysgarth's charm and menace. Mendoza Malbec has that plush fruit with a shadowy edge, plum, blackberry, cocoa, which is perfect for Hitchcock's velvet glove tension and Lina's creeping doubt.
So go ahead and maybe decant for about 20 to 30 minutes to soften the tannins and serve in our Bordeaux glass. But just maybe don't let your husband pour, though.
So a bonus food pairing is grilled meats, steak. I think steak might be good. Aged cheeses. What kind of aged cheeses you think?
Well, this is
Don't
what
say
from
meat.
Argentina, maybe like a manchego or something like that. Something like, I think that's more Spanish, but still, it's like kind of sharp, but kind of has that old, like,
Say meat.
yeah, so kind of maybe an old, like a more mature cheese.
Yeah, you're more the cheese expert than I am, I think.
I don't know that I'm expert, but
Yeah.
I do enjoy cheese. Looking at the wine, it's a very dark, hints of like ruby in it. In terms of the smells, I'd say more darker fruits. Like you said, I think blackberry, maybe hints of plum. I don't know about the cocoa. That's something maybe it's more of a taste. That's, I would say that I think the fruit, it has that fruit forward taste, but it does not linger in our mouth, right? It just kind of goes away. And I don't think it leaves the most pleasant taste. Not that it's like terrible, but or is it like astringent, but it's more, it's kind of like the dryness. The dryness is just like lingering.
Right.
So I would say that just to drink this by itself, that's a no-go. The pairing, it could probably be really good, I think. And we talked about like the grilled meats, maybe a steak.
I think we should have brought a grilled steak in here with it.
I know. We always talk about
early,
having
but
food
still.
when we do these pairings, but we haven't really done that yet.
Fish and biscuits might have went to it or something.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I would think
Chocolate and biscuits go with everything.
well, what I was thinking was the grilled chop or something like that too.
Gotta
Yeah,
have something.
yeah, something over the barbecue.
So I guess what we're saying is if you were sitting around in a winery, this would not be your choice. It would not be mine.
I don't think so. But once again, we have particular tastes. So someone who really likes drier wine, I think, would enjoy this. I just don't think that it's our forte. We like a little bit more semi-sweets to a certain extent. You like sweeter than I do. That's not to say that there's not amazing dry wines that I do enjoy. But I will say I got this bottle because of the name. It's like getting the book because of the book cover. This for me was a representation of Cary Grant. Tall, dark, stranger, especially in this film in Suspicion.
And you don't know until you open it, right? Now we know.
Exactly. This is not something that we actually, because normally we try to pair a movie or a film with wine that we've already tried, or at least I've tried, you've tried. Sometimes you've never tried what I'm bringing to the table, and that's okay. But, it's something that we've at least have a little knowledge about, whereas this one is definitely, it's a blind taste test, essentially.
It really was because, we have one of our favorite wineries that has a Malbec that I think has spoiled us a little bit.
Yeah.
Too. I don't think we're terrible Malbecs.
Malbecs usually tend to be pretty good. And like I said, this is like for us, I think on the drier side. So once again, I'm going to say like, oh my gosh, this is the most terrible wine I've ever had because I will be drinking this. If it's bad, I will pour it down the drain. And that's rare. And I do cry a little bit when I have to do that. But I think that's only happened a couple times. And that's only because the storage was done improperly. Something happened with the cork. And so the wine actually got bad.
I think I've only one time poured wine down the sink.
It's very rare. So,
I'm up for anything. But hey, maybe the tech guy tomorrow wants a glass.
Yeah, maybe even tonight, like have a grilled something, and I feel like a lamb or a steak I think would be nice. But so for your rating out of 5 wine glasses,
I think we know what I'm gonna do. Right?
Yeah,
sure as an omission. So
right.
I'm gonna have to say I'm gonna do a 1. This is the Plan 9 from outer space.
Yeah, I think I tend to give like lower ratings, but let's say this. 1 is not the worst we've like 1 doesn't mean that it can't be a good wine for someone else, right? I just want to be very clear that what for all of us, like, you enjoy something that might be a bit sweeter. For me, that's not to say that I'm not enjoying it. It just might be, I might do a little bit less than that. So for this one, I mean, I am probably going to say more of like a 1, a 1.5 at the most, but I think it can raise maybe as you actually pair it with something. Like, once again, it's having it paired with something versus not having it paired. And sometimes wines are great just by themselves, but a lot of times wines taste better when they're paired with other foods.
Let's leave it open for a better rating.
Well, with that, cheers, and let's go ahead and return to the film story.
Cheers. In the 1941 film Suspicion, our heroine, Lina Laidlaw, played by Joan Fontaine, is a shy, wealthy Englishwoman who falls hard for charming playboy Johnnie Aysgarth, played by Cary Grant, in his most dangerously charismatic role.
They marry fast, but Lina starts to notice cracks in Johnny's story. Gambling debts, lies, and maybe a plot to kill her?
Is Johnny a loving husband or a murderer in evening wear?
That's going to be a question. So this film was directed by Alfred Hitchcock, the master of suspense himself, and this was his first collaboration with Cary Grant, and this was the first time serving as both director and producer for a film.
So it's based on a 1932 novel, Before the Fact, by Francis Iles. The book's ending is far darker. Lina knowingly drinks poisoned milk, narrating her own death. Hitchcock wanted to keep that version.
But RFK was saying, we can't have Cary Grant be a killer. Audiences adore him. So they forced a rewrite, and debate's still raging over whether that ending is satisfying or a total cop-out. And I will say, I think for both of us that we prefer this version because it's happier ending versus, well, and then also Cary Grant being a murderer. Like, hell no, that's impossible. So I think this is our preference. It's funny because I do tend to like want to go, oh, let me go check out the book. This is one where, I mean, I still might read it, but it might give me an icky feeling. I have to watch the film again.
Right. Well, we've talked about this in the past where it's a tried and true formula that people want to. Now you have the avant-garde directors, of course, but people like a happy ending. They want everything tied up neatly in a bow.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. They don't like dark endings. Been that way forever, particularly in this 30s, 40s.
Oh.
There's always, the villain always gets his dues. They never get away with the crime.
Right.
There's always that justice is served, happy endings, the couple kiss and run away in the sunset. That's what audiences wanted to see. And some of it has to, you're talking pre-war. So, escapism to the movies. They don't want to see.
It makes sense.
They want to see happy. They don't want to see.
There's too much sadness
already in their everyday life. So Hitchcock cast Grant because audience wouldn't believe he couldn't murder anyone, making the suspense cut deeper. He even called Cary the only actor I ever loved in Hollywood.
And so Cary Grant gives one of his most ambiguous performances, so every smile could be a confession.
And Joan Fontaine, she loved the role so much, she wrote to Hitchcock offering to play Lina for free.
Yeah, so I think she had read the novel and heard that there was the screenwrite for it. So, but in any case, I think at that point you could say that she was dying to play the part.
So Fontaine did the right thing, apparently, because she won the Academy Award for Best Actress, which is the only Oscar ever won for a Hitchcock film, which is a shame.
It's surprising.
It's been mentioned several times, but with his breadth of cinema behind him and what he contributes to the cinema, it's a tragedy that he doesn't have never for Best Director.
Right.
That is Rebecca. Rebecca alone should have got it for him.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. So some fun little gossip. So Fontaine's sister, Olivia de Havilland, so you'll know her from Gone with the Wind. So she also was nominated that year. Her sister, Joan Fontaine, won. And so that sister's rivalry hit like a full boil. It was definitely the rivalry between those two was well known.
I'm wondering about Joan Fontaine. Well, I think Olivia de Havilland lived to be 100. Joan Fontaine lived a very long time too.
Yeah.
So their rivalry was so deep that it was even who lived longer.
Right.
But I'm wondering about Joan Fontaine because she and Cary Grant had worked on Gunga Din together.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't get along. She couldn't get along with her sister. So I'm wondering, was, behind that Joan Fontaine a bit of a handful? I don't know, because it doesn't sound like she could get along with anybody.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think until as long as they both lived, they never had anything to do with each other.
Yeah.
And some of it too is I think if I'm not somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I'm doing this off the top of my head. This was Joan Fontaine's only Oscar. Olivia de Havilland got quite a few, so that didn't help matters.
Yeah.
Really. So
Because I think, were they also in the running previously? So it was like for Rebecca and whatever Olivia got.
she got another one for Best Supporting Actress in Gone with the Wind, but she also got one for a movie called The Snake Pit.
Was it The Snake? I don't know when that was. For some reason, I thought I read where she had gotten an Oscar for something like maybe The Snake Pit or something like that, and Rebecca was also on the lineup. So it was like 2 years in a row where they were.
Yeah, that didn't help.
Yeah.
Mom always did like you best. So RKO owned the rights for 6 years, but couldn't decide how dark to make it. Rumor says the studio forced Hitchcock to shoot 6 different endings.
And so Hitchcock was then clashing with his ex. None of the endings were essentially what he wanted. His preferred ending was actually with Johnny being the real killer, where he poisons Lina and then I guess mails her letter to the police in guilt. So I guess she wrote, "Hey, my husband's killing me," letter. So obviously we haven't read the book, so that's just my assumption.
And there was also a lot of clashing between Hitchcock and Cary Grant, and with Grant and Fontaine. Cary thought Fontaine was temperamental. Okay, we'll get to the bottom of that.
Yeah. So I think maybe she was temperamental in many, many ways. So,
Yeah.
although I mean, obviously Hitchcock worked with her in Rebecca just previously. So obviously she worked well with him, but maybe not other actors. But anyway, despite all that friction, even Cary Grant and Hitchcock were having issues initially. I think there was something about where Cary felt like Hitchcock was all about Joan. Essentially, that relationship between Grant and Hitchcock got better because obviously they came together again for Notorious, To Catch a Thief, and North by Northwest.
I think he learned Hitchcock had to learn to respect you. A lot of personality in a ring.
Right.
With Hitchcock.
I'm sure. And it turns out essentially that the only thing stronger than poison is a good box office. So it's all about the money.
Always has been, right? So initially RKO cut out all the menacing Cary Grant scenes, leaving only 55 minutes of usable film.
And that's not really a movie. Right. So luckily, Hitchcock had a secret weapon, and that's in-camera editing. So essentially, he filmed each shot so it could be fit only together one way. So essentially, the producers couldn't meddle without wrecking the entire story, and he actually used that same trick when he did Becca. It's very smart. So watching Hitchcock's lighting and camera angles, that glowing milk glass keeps you questioning what's safe.
He literally put a light bulb inside the milk to make it glow. One of his most iconic suspense tricks.
And it makes me wonder exactly, because you like the technical parts, how exactly did he do that? I'm thinking about the time period. So how did he put a light bulb in there and make it glow? I'm thinking light bulbs are pretty big. What's the battery source? And it looks like he's just holding a glass of milk. So I question that a little bit.
Yeah. So he's a scientist too. Okay.
But anyway, so one of the things you want to notice as you're watching the film is Fontaine's costume. So initially, she looks like a spinster, but as she falls in love, her costumes become very soft and romantic. So very early on, that's what they look like. She's happy, she's in love. And then they become more sharper, more angular as her suspicion deepens throughout the film.
And I'm gonna let it go. That is like, it took a man to make her happy, but I'm gonna let it go. She's happy. I'll let you have it, Joan. So the wardrobe, jokes aside, the wardrobe does track her unraveling psyche and emotional state.
Yeah.
Does serve a purpose.
And so one of the things that Hitchcock also did, we talked about how he filmed key scenes in sequence. Well, it also helped to, letting the actors naturally build tension.
So, and he subtly manipulated his actors, keeping Fontaine off balance so her confusion felt real.
Suspicion, it's part love story, part paranoid spiral, and Hitchcock makes the audience feel every drop of doubt.
Yeah, and it's a masterclass. Is he or isn't he? And the real suspense lies in not knowing. And of course, since this movie, we've seen this formula many times, and even he has done it, repeated the formula later on Silence for Murder. Exactly the same formula, but a lot of, is my husband trying to kill me?
Well, I think by the end of this film, you're essentially going to never look at a glass of milk the same way ever again. especially if your spouse happens to hand something over to you, right? So I think our level of suspicion for our spouses will rise considerably after this film, at least for over the weekend.
Well, it explains why my spouse, every time I go say, hey, can you taste this when I'm taste testing? And he sniffs it and he looks at it and he won't let me put it in his mouth. I'm like, and every time I say, what do you think? I'm trying to poison you? So there's no me getting away with it, I'll tell you, because it is, yeah. So I'm going to have to go at it a different way, I think.
I think so.
Smothering seems like an option.
Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and watch the film now. And if you'd like to join us as we watch and discuss the film Suspicion, check out our accessory reel. This is a bonus companion track, and essentially we'll provide commentary as we're watching the film together. Otherwise, go ahead and continue with Mamie and I as we provide a few snippets from the film, and then we'll discuss the criminal themes that we identified throughout the film Suspicion 1941.
By the way, just to throw this in there, be on the lookout for 2 cameos. You know, he always says 1. All of his films. And this one, there's actually 2. So be on the lookout for. So if you see 1, don't get comfortable because there's going to be a second.
Okay. I think I know about the first one, but the second one I'll have to definitely keep your eyes open. Okay, right. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and watch Suspicion.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't hurt you. Off a man in the next compartment smoking a vile cigar. I had to come in here. You don't smoke, do you?
No, I don't.
Oh, thank heavens for that. After last night, my head couldn't stand it. You understand that? I can hardly believe it. Can't be the same girl. What's her name? Do you know her?
Yes, but lay off, John. Even up on your hands for one day. Besides, she's not up your alley.
To tell you the truth, I'm a little bored with people in my alley. Introduce me to her, will you?
Certainly not. She's a very carefully brought-up young lady.
Well, if you won't do it, I'll have to do it myself.
Oh, come on, they're going.
I think I'm falling in love with you, and I don't quite like it. That's why I stayed away.
Johnny, get some water, quick.
It won't help. I've seen this happen before. There's nothing much you can do about it. No, that's no use, darling. It'll either kill him or it'll go away by itself.
Oh, you mean? I always think of my murderers as my heroes, but I didn't mean to.
Johnny, you're locking up. What about Ethel?
Well, it's Ethel's day off. She won't be back until morning.
What about Cook?
Oh, what's the matter, dear? Have you forgotten? Cook's away on the whole. Good night, Lina.
So welcome back. We just completed watching Suspicion from 1941. We hope that you enjoyed watching the film with us. Definitely check out our accessory reel, which is our bonus track, if you'd like to listen to us as we have commentary as we're watching the film. So at this point, the question is, how would you rate this film out of 5 projectors? How many film projectors was this film?
I am going to give it, I want to give it a 5, but I'm not gonna. I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay.
It's good filmmaking.
Yeah.
Just the camera work alone is good filmmaking. Good dialogue. I'm not going to be critical of it, as I mentioned earlier in the accessory reel. I'm not going to be critical of it because, you know, it's not up to our feminist standards of date.
Right.
It represents the time. Women were there was more, you know, stick to it, stand by your man. Then I'm not gonna make fun of that. Some good performances. I'm only knocking off a little bit just because I really, it was mentioned about 55 minutes. I do feel it could have been tightened up a bit. I don't think we need so many instances of her betraying him to get the point.
Or him betraying her.
Yeah. Lying to her. Yeah. I think some of that could have been left on the editing room floor, up to 55 minutes maybe. But yeah, I think it could have been tightened up a little bit because
it was like repetitive after a while.
Yeah, I was thinking, I got it. Yeah, I got it. He's a cad. He's a liar. Not to be trusted. And again, she's just, you know, she's having a bad day every day. And so, yeah, that's why I'm knocking off a star, just because of that, just because the editing needed to be tightened up a little bit, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to give it a 5. I'm thinking maybe a 4.5 projectors. I think a lot of it is the cinematography. Like, really love that. Love the shadows. Amazing. I think work for both of them, right? Like, where she goes from, you know, the spinster to a woman in love and the joy and just like even to someone who's like doubtful of everything that her husband does. Like, I think that was a really great performance. And then for Cary Grant, he's this suave, debonair man, but yet look at these dark instances where that mask drops. I think he does a really good job at that.
Yeah.
I think once again, it's a great film. I think the ending for myself is like I wanted something maybe slightly different, and I don't know what it is that I want different, but I don't know. It was just like she came back too easily, and I don't know.
Took responsibility for it all.
Yeah, I think I just really disliked that part, even though I am happy that it was I'll go quote unquote happy ending because we don't know.
You can see why he's staying with her because he's not going to find anybody else that gullible, no matter how hard he looks.
No.
I mean, even by 1940s standards, she's one of a kind.
Yeah, and it's funny because she seems so strong from the very get-go. Like, oh, she's not going to take any nonsense from him. But she cracked really quickly just from, oh, her parents said that she's going to be spinster for life. And then that was the turning point for her. And then she became this gullible person where she had more of that stance beforehand. Even when she looked like she's, you know what, I'm not going to take this anymore, she fell apart immediately. Yeah, I mean, she stood up to her father, her parents. Like, she did have where she was willing to stand up to people. That woman that was coming and telling her how Johnny was, at the races and lost his job and everything. She wasn't putting up with nonsense, but for him, she would put up for anything.
She did. Well, she also did for her parents, but she has boundary issues. I mean, and codependency issues. And I think some of it is that they don't really come out and say it, but her dad is military because of the portrait, and you can sense with the will reading, give her the portrait and the chairs, you can sense without it being said the underlying tension that her father, and like if the woman says something to the effect of very controlled or monitored upbringing, so he wasn't going to get much. So there's all this underlying kind of, without coming right out and saying it, that her father was very controlling, and that kind of plays into it for what her marriage is like, is that she's kind of used to men running the show already. So I said this earlier, she's working out some daddy issues. But again, this isn't a study in psychology. This isn't a study in romance. This was suspense, and as Alfred Hitchcock always does, you knocked it out of the park. Because as many times as I've seen the movie, because I love this movie, I'm still kind of on pins and needles.
You're always questioning everything, just like she was. You always have this in the back of your mind. There is the doubt. Did he or didn't he? Right?
Or is he contemplating it even?
I mean, for me, it looked like he was constantly contemplating it, right?
He looks ominous. It's like locking the door, and the cook's out of town all for the day. Yeah. So it's just everything, even when he's doing something nice, there seems to be an ominous undertone to it. So that's what it's meant to be. And, the other takeaways is just, I'm sure some people will see it as this, and maybe it is just kind of nitpicking over the minutiae of it and just look it over. But that's what we're here to do, is nitpick over the minutiae. Yeah. What else? I mean, you can't fill up the time saying it's great, moving on, Like, they're like, why didn't she die at the beginning of the movie? It's like, then you would have an hour and a half of no movie.
Right.
So it'd be the credits and the end credits, the opening credits, end credits, in the middle of the movie would be nothing.
Yeah.
We got to fill up some airtime somehow. So this is how we do it.
Very true. Well, let's go ahead and start talking about the crime analysis. So I think the first area that was kind of identified, and you saw it very early on when they first met, was the fraud and deception. Of course, I don't want to see Cary Grant, believing that he's a fraudster, but from the very beginning, where he's going from a third class ticket to wanting a first class ticket and going, oh no, I got a first class ticket, that was incorrect, and getting money from her to pay for his ticket. That's one little shady right there. I mean, yes, sometimes stuff like that does happen, but just the way that he would interact, and like, it was the cigar smoke, it was terrible. I couldn't handle it. And he kind of like scopes her out, right? In terms of, this is an interesting mark, Yeah.
Gonna believe me or you're lying on us, right? Yeah.
But I think even with that, though, he has that charm. You can kind of like look at it in a little bit of rose-colored glasses when you're like, no, it's impossible. The idea of like, no way could Cary Grant be like an evil person, right? So those rose-colored glasses and kind of looking at it from that love story perspective, really, right?
Yeah, and Alfred Hitchcock even let a little bit of his arsenic lace character shine in that one scene where he was being a little funny, a little bit of slapsticky stuff that he was doing just for a second when he put his feet up in the chair.
Yeah.
And shrugged his shoulders. And it's like that peeked through.
Yeah, it did.
Like, oh, and it made me want more of that. It's like, oh,
I know.
that's a Cary Grant right there. That just always flummoxed and flustered, and
Yeah.
so he let that peek through, and that was really when it's the nod. It's like, hey, remember, we're not going to turn him into a villain. This is Cary Grant,
right?
And this is early. This is early in the career. Keep in mind, Cary Grant's got a lot of career ahead of him. This is 1941. He's got a long way to go.
Yep.
I mean, all the way into color, Father Goose. I mean, he's got a long career ahead of him. If they'd have turned him to a Peter Lorre or any kind of that would have, I don't think we would have gotten to enjoy his career like we did.
Yeah, I agree. So kind of thinking about this concept of like fraud. So, fraud's been around for a millennia. So what's interesting is the first recorded case of fraud was actually in ancient Greece back in 300 BC. And so essentially the sea merchant took out it's called like a bottomary loan. So it's some kind of insurance on his ship and cargo. And essentially he planned to sink the ship and then collect on the loan without delivering goods. So the plan that he had backfired, and when his crew caught him doing that, and essentially he drowned as part of that, as trying to attempt to escape. But you have people like trying to shave off metals off of coins, right? Because some of these coins have very precious metals, and then making a profit of that because you replace that like precious metal with like cheaper metals. You had like back in the 9th century bishops creating fake decrees and forged documents to gain political power. Lots of political activity happening in the churches during that time. Although it's interesting, the word fraud didn't even come around until 14th century, but the activity itself has been happening for obviously much longer time. You have people stating that they were royalty, whether they were or not. You had different speculative schemes that were happening where people would get investors involved in all this money, and then essentially nothing came out of it. The money just disappeared, which brings you to like Charles Ponzi and that scheme. That was very famous for financial deception. That was in the 90s. Although, by the way, that happened again, right, in more recent history with Bernie Madoff and his Ponzi scheme. There's so many different financial fraud cases that occur, but that idea of fraud, like once again, you see that I think at the very get-go of him trying to defraud her, even though it's very small change, right? But it's still an aspect of that. And I think you see him, it seems like he's always been that. Johnnie Aysgarth has always been, that's the way he works, right? No, he doesn't know any better at that point. That's just how he's always been.
Well, it's just one crime leads to the next crime. And what they say, what's the saying? You're just digging a deeper hole for yourself,
right?
So he's desperate for money, which leads him now to steal from others, steal from his employer, who was his cousin,
right?
Who gives him an opportunity to have a legit job. What's he do? He steals from him. Yeah. So now he's got, not only is he broke and in the hole for gambling debts, which is bad enough. Now he's doing things that are violating the law. So now he's got to pay back debt or else, face prison time. So, it's like he paid us back and I won't press charges.
Right.
Because it's family.
Yeah.
He's still trying to cut him a break, which is part of the problem.
Everyone seems to be cutting him right all the time.
Can anybody say no to Johnny?
Doesn't seem like
a problem.
Yeah.
Nobody ever says no to Johnny.
Or it's the people that he hangs around never say no, right? So his best friend is always going to say yes to him. His wife is always saying yes to him. And honestly, even his relatives are saying yes to him, but honestly, probably more on her behalf than anything else. He's actually like, why would anybody want her to suffer? So he's kind of has a great scheme going on there too. It's really all for her. It's always been for her.
Yeah.
But it never is, right? It's all about him and what he wants out of it.
That is my one level of irritation with this. I mean, I would say we'll let the female part of it go about, how, that was the way it was at the time. But the way everybody around him treats him like he's some lovable goof. But let's face it, he's got a serious defect.
Mhm.
And his character, he's not a morally sound person.
No.
He lies. Everything as a means justifies the end. This may be why you don't like the ending. And in 2 minutes, all of a sudden I'll take my lumps and I'll go to prison, and he's a changed man after years and years of stealing from his family, lying to people, contemplating things that he's well, I was going to kill myself, which is that would have been cowardly. Violating the trust of people that he shouldn't have. And that was turned around in a 5 minute, less a 3 minute conversation.
Yeah.
And I think the other part that might have bothered you mentioned it, which is he really trying to save her?
Honestly, the way that it looked, and that might be something where you have to go back to that scene and like slow motion it, right? Put it in slow mo. But to me, it looked like he was kind of pushing her, like she was kind of pushing away from him, thinking, oh, he's going to do something to her. And then it was almost like, then get off of me type of thing. I mean, that's what it kind of looked
Maybe
like. Just get out of here then. But
changed his mind or something.
and part of it is how it actually looks like they went from her grabbing his arm to him looking like he was pushing her to her grabbing his arm again,
Right.
which was essentially the same image just before. So it was very, for me, that was a little odd because it was such a quick little scene, and you're kind of like, did my eyes deceive me? Is this something did he really try to push her a bit?
Yeah.
Or was that something where he was trying to, like,
Who knows?
Everything's happening in such quick time frame, right? And maybe he was trying to push her out the door, because why is that door keeping opening is one question, right? Did he rig the door? You don't even know what to think anymore. Of course, him kind of coming back and saying, why did you try to push away? Like, you could have killed us all, like blaming her on it. It's like, what are you talking? So
yeah.
you kind of actually question everything. I mean, that's just like the gaslighting aspect of it, right?
Should be questioned. He's not told the truth once the entire movie. But
well, no, I mean, questioning yourself, and what you thought you just experienced, and what maybe actually happened. Exactly. And I think that's that kind of, like I said, that gaslighting aspect of it, where it's like, no, what I thought happened is this, but you're telling me it's something else. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't, maybe I did think about that. Maybe what I was thinking is actually incorrect.
And so that's a good point. Because all right up to the end, somehow or another, he manages to make it her fault. Makes her believe that all of this was her fault. That was wow. That was some fun footwork there. But I mean, I don't think that's the Alfred Hitchcock's fault, because it's obvious somebody's not going to discover a moral compass over in that period of time. Say
right. I mean, that was like 5 minutes of, I went to, we got married and I said this, I said that, but I kept on lying. I kept on doing these things. And then I tried to, I may have tried to kill you, but just let's back off of that part.
Yeah.
And, like it wasn't even him saying I was trying to kill myself. It was her saying, oh, you were trying to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And then it was like, yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to do.
That seems too powerful. So, but in Alfred Hitchcock's defense on this, he was pretty much demanded to make this ending. This is not how it went. So he had to take what would have been a more
very sinister,
the ending that made sense, which would have been brought to its logical conclusion, which is this guy was unredeemable.
Mm-hmm.
And which would have, but wasn't what audience were going to sit still for, because of who Cary Grant was, and who all of that. So he kind of had, I think that's today what they call a plot hole. He had to twist this in a way to come up with an ending that really didn't fit the entire film, right?
So, because he had it sequenced, right? Like he had in mind what he wanted to do, and then probably last minute had to change the ending. Yes, but if that was the ending and he was willing to massage his storyline, it could have probably ended better, where it's like, actually, you know what? Yeah, he had nefarious intent from the very get-go, but over time, he really truly came to love her and changed his ways. But that's not happening in 5 minutes. That's happening over a period of time, but you never saw that happening. He actually seemed kind of less caring of her over time, right? kind of in her face about stuff, and everything she did was making him angry, right? And cold towards her.
And he wasn't contrite. Next thing you
No.
know, he's got her begging for him to stay again. And so, I mean, he did what he could with it. And it was a square peg in a round hole kind of. And that star that went away is because it's a tag monkey. And it's kind of like the movie shifted a different direction. You're not sure why.
But it also felt like it shifted just at the last second, right? Like,
whoa, I'm watching.
Everything that you're seeing seems like it's going to go a certain way.
Well, nothing before happened.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
It's like she found him not taking. It's like, you didn't take out the trash. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like, let's make up. Okay. So,
right.
Yeah, there's a lot more. I mean, you just spent the last hour and some change of everybody's life being a total jerk. Moving on.
Well, we talked about the fraud aspect, but another piece of this too is the embezzlement, right? So, and what's kind of interesting is that, once again, when we talk about the embezzlement, it's that it's closer to home. Still, technically, it's a financial crime and it's a subset of fraud. It's also where you're involving people who are, you have a relationship, right, with these people that you're taking money from.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the bigger part of it. And so once again, like, yes, he's more looking at fraud at the get-go because he doesn't know her, right? He's frauding everyone. He's frauding the railroad station, the railroad line. But then once he actually, but when we look at like the embezzlement, he embezzled from his cousin, right? He was trying to embezzle from his friend, obviously embezzling from her and whatever money she had from her family. So that's really the difference, I guess, between the two. And once again,
are we led to believe that when he was asking him to dissolve the corporation, he'd had a change of heart about that? He was decided he wasn't going to take advantage of him anymore. That he was going to let that one go.
I'm not exactly sure about that part. That seems like what that was supposed to be, but the fact that he died before that could be resolved. And it makes me wonder too, like where does that guy's money go? Where does Beaky's money go to? Does it go now for like how he set up the corporation?
Yeah,
there's like some empty areas of like, well, what happened with that money? And did he now come into fortune through that?
Yeah, he didn't get it somehow, shape or form. But yeah, so I don't know. I think that was a little element of her love is making him a changed man. He's becoming a better person through her love, which we've seen this one before too in Romance of the Redwoods.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So apparently
which actually was happening. This is not more so it seemed. Well, okay. Yes, he went back to his thieving ways, but it became more evident in that one where it's, he's trying to do better for her. Whereas I feel like it's slightly different than in this one. You might disagree, but I felt like there is a slice of difference between the two.
And I think when the will and stuff, the plot was to purposely not have her get anything. I mean, obviously we know that probably the reason she didn't get anything was her dad knew that it was just going to get squandered away on him.
Right.
But it also sets for later into the ending, which is now we're led to believe that he's with her out of love because she would have rolled into it and been the heiress she was supposed to be.
Oh.
Now we're left with the same question. Is he with her for
right.
her money or for her? But now we're led to believe, yes, he's with her for her because she's not broke, but I'm going to assume 500 pounds for the lifestyle.
I mean, that is interesting because it, right, that perception that, okay, he really is in love with her. Another aspect of that too, that would kind of help support that is he didn't go after the mother. So the mother got everything else that was part of that estate. Honestly, if you were trying to get money as quickly as possible, you go after the mother because everything would then go to your wife.
Yeah. Well, again, I know what English law is. Well, it's usually the surviving relative is usually what gets it.
Right.
It's not like I think the laws would have changed by then because old laws were it didn't go. Female couldn't inherit property, but I think it probably changed by this period of time. Well, obviously they could because the wife got it.
Right, the wife.
So that law had already changed. But it's not going to go to the sisters and stuff. She would have got everything. So that's a good point.
Go visit your mother. She died of grief. You got everything. Amazing.
Take her for a drive. That's what you did.
and then take her for a drive, right?
Yeah.
And there you go.
You going for a ride, lady?
So like, yeah, all that kind of potential, like mysterious potential death and all that sort of stuff is
So
interesting.
Don't go get in the car with this guy.
Now,
And she just kept doing it. It's like, be like, let's go kissing in the car.
well, yeah, I mean, I had issues also. Like, essentially, it looked like he was attacking her initially on that hill, and that was
His hands
that
were
was
all over her.
yeah, and her jacket and her hat flew off and everything like that. It's like,
So he could hit her boob spot.
right, that, and then, oh, it's your hair. I need to change your hair. Like, that's the whole reason why I was attacking you and pulling off your jacket and stuff. But her jacket, her hat, what else?
Had a man decide to redo your hair in the middle of anything.
No.
Most of them don't even notice your hair. You come home after get my hair done. It's like, hey, did you notice I got my hair done? It's like, okay. I'm supposed to, right? Yeah, you're supposed to. Although I'm actually with somebody that gets upset who keeps their hair at like less than an inch at all times. And when he goes and gets another quarter of an inch cut off of it, gets mad when I don't notice. So I think we might be doing reverse here.
Right.
You didn't even notice I got my hair cut. I'm like, what, a millimeter? I'm sorry. It's always this short anyway.
Right.
But yeah, but I've never, no man in my ever existence has ever said, here, that is not a flattering hairdo. Can I rope your boobs and change that for you? Okay.
Like at that point, it's like that's a sure indicator that maybe this isn't a good relationship to get into. But and she
I don't
seemed
think she
very
cared.
steady state, and then it was just like, oh, now I'm in love. It's like you don't even know this person. You had no conversation, and now you're like totally in love with this person.
Yeah,
It's just weird.
The devil on my shoulder wants to be so crude about this when she comes back from the honeymoon. I'm thinking to myself, wow, she really didn't need to get laid because she is a happy camper now, and she'll put up with anything.
It seems like it. Yeah.
Like linoleum. So yeah. But anyway, so I got it off. I held on to that for like
You did.
hours.
You did.
So
You did very good.
I'm getting better. It was out there in the 45 minutes into the movie, so I'm pretty proud of that. Because you couldn't sandblast that smile off her face and like, oh
Yeah.
boy.
Oh yeah. The joy.
Remember, she was a spinster. She's like, yeah.
Well, right. She went from spinster looking to glowing. Things were going on there. He did his husbandly duty quite well, I guess.
So I kept expecting her. I was like, the fainting is like, oh, yep. But no, they weren't going to bring a child.
Thank goodness.
Hell, even Alfred Hitchcock was going to bring a child into this mess.
Yeah.
Even he's not that twisted.
Well, I think if there had been, and if she did die at the end, that would I don't think that he would probably continue honestly in that industry probably during that time period if something like that had happened. Because essentially you're, just the mindset of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you hardly talked about pregnancy, and for that then to happen.
I say we do a remake.
A remake?
And this time she's pregnant. With the spice.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, she's it almost seemed like she did. And then it's like, anything you want, anything, because we need to be a family together, right? But once again, they didn't really do divorce at that point in time either. So that would have been a big no-no anyway. So if it was like today and you had divorces more readily available, you probably had that point. I was like, I'm gone. I'm out of here. But if you had a child, then I really do want to have this relationship, keep that family. He didn't have a very good upbringing or whatever, maybe that would have changed.
Yeah, but see, in the remake though, there's twists. The woman has a hidden bank account that he knows nothing about. It's a trust fund that's in secret, and while he thinks he's trying to murder her, she's actually trying to murder him.
She has an insurance policy on him,
and she takes him for a drive. Only this time, she does the postman always rings twice move. Puts a brick on the gas pedal and drives him off the cliff. Oh, problem solved.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother movie. Good one, by the way. But Lana Turner, I don't know if you've ever seen it. If I hadn't seen it, it's a good one. That one's been remade. But that's another good movie. It's a film noir. But anyhow, I digress. I'm just trying to be my own little help for Hitchcock over here. Not doing a very good job at it. This is why I don't make movies. I just rip them apart. Apparently, for those who can't teach, or those who can't do.
There were so kind of coming back to some of the crime analysis aspect. There there were like the deaths or potential deaths that were going on. And obviously, you kind of wonder, right, throughout all these deaths that occur throughout the film. Plus, there's a lot of talk of killing and deaths also. A lot of it dialogue coming from Johnny. And, like thinking about like Beaky and his suspicious, how he died. He was this person that was with him. I kind of wondered also about Lina's father. Like, she was by herself. He had been out and he came back with like, oh, here's the telegram. But hadn't he been away? Like, who knows?
Yeah.
He's always away when the stuff happens.
Yeah.
And so it does make you kind of think a little bit further. It's like, is he somehow connected to these somehow, some way?
Mm-hmm.
And also, all he does is read detective mystery novels, and he talks with with pathologists and mystery writers that have all this knowledge about how to kill people, and even known or new poisons that are undetectable.
You realize you just put us on a whole lot of suspects list.
Us?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
This is all we talk about. I'm a poison expert, so thanks for that. Right now, there's somebody putting together a dossier on me.
Yes, we were so excited to figure out what is that poison.
We started this. Remember the game? How to get away with murder?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe he was just an enthusiast. So yeah, well, you're left guessing. It's just you truly will never know.
Yeah.
He could have took her home and split her. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And just drown her in the bathtub. You don't know.
Very true.
She kept up that pleading and begging and chasing. He did
Bring that back at some point.
I would. He didn't know I was gonna. Because it's like, holy cow, get some respect. Well, out of it.
Snap out of it.
Moose truck.
Okay, moose truck. Yeah, it's like snap out of it.
Yeah. Have some respect, Lord.
And I think what was also interesting from the film, you were kind of looking into this a little bit with the reference to that trial. It was the trial of who again?
Richard Palmer?
Yes, Richard Palmer. Essentially how, looking at this case, this trial, and then leveraging those activities, even though it wasn't like, yes, it was on a footpath and a bridge and the person fell because he cut some parts of the bridge, but the concept of it, right? It's like you lured this person knowing like the brandy part. You lured this person, take brandy and essentially get to the point of where they drink so much that they kill themselves. Although I am still interested to find out more about brandy and how this is even a weapon of any kind.
I did a little bit of looking on that.
Yeah.
And I just think it's no more than he had a sensitivity to it.
Because what is in brandy?
I do not know. It's made out of some type of fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Because notice when he said I'd been there, I would have never let that guy give him the brandy. So it was some type of allergic reaction, like the peanuts or something. And we talked about that. It's like, if somebody has an allergy to something, then, if you somehow or another expose them to that somehow, it's a way to murder somebody, I suppose, and get away with it. You can even claim, I didn't know about it.
So, yeah, I was like, that seems really weird. Okay, so I'm looking at it right now. So brandy can be made out of grapes. It can be made out of fruit. So you have things like apple or cherry. And then there's another one that's left over from skin, seeds, and stems after grapes have been pressed. That's more of like I guess more from Italy. But so yeah, maybe he had a cherry allergy.
He had that reaction when they were celebrating his big win, which is another foreshadowing.
Right.
And then they're like, she thought he was dead. And he's like, no, he'll snap out of it. He seemed very uncaring. He's like, no, he'll snap out of it. He'll snap out of it, which he did. But it looked like he was just kind of almost like an anaphylactic shock.
Right.
But not as bad. But that was because it was only a small amount.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess whoever the guy was with him in Paris, it sounded like it was more of a dare. Like,
right.
Guys get together, drink up and fill
that's how people die. It's like dares and like, hey, I dare you to do this, and then the person dies.
So drink more, drink more, drink more. And so this much he had that reaction. If he had a massive amount of brandy, then it could have just, his throat could have closed shut. Yeah. But like that lady, the crime writer said, is if you know somebody has some type of medical condition like that, gosh, there's been movies, and I'm trying to pinpoint one of them. It wasn't Diabolical. diabolic. Basically, somebody has a heart condition and trying to scare them to death.
Right.
It's been done a couple of times.
Yeah.
Because there's no evidence. I mean, somebody has a heart condition, they dropped dead of a heart attack. Nobody's going to think anything of it, right?
There's one with the inhaler. Like the inhalers were all. What is that one?
A hand that rocks the cradle.
Yeah. So the inhalers, there's no air in them, and so
she put pinholes in everything.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just like, here's your weakness, and I'm going to take advantage of that. But honestly, at the same time, you wouldn't know that, right?
Yeah, that was a little plot hole too. She'd have probably got, they'd have probably noticed that there was all of the inhalers empty. But trying to scare somebody to death with a heart attack, I mean, how would you prove that? How that you were in there? I mean, it's a natural death. Nobody would think anything about it. So it's something to think about. Like if anybody I know drops dead of a heart attack, it was not me. I swear to God, it wasn't. I don't know anybody with heart conditions. So someone put that out there right now.
It was a more recent film, was like Home Fries or something with Drew Barrymore.
Oh yeah,
and the boys with the helicopter and scare the stepfather or something.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, it makes for good movie play.
Yeah.
There's a real life case, and it's Von Bulow, and he never was convicted of it because they're not still to date. Not sure if he ever did it. Was Sonny Von Bulow, who was a diabetic. He went to trial for it, and the attorney that's very much in the news now, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, made his name on this case, but they couldn't. They felt like the kids just hated him. But she went into a coma because she had been too much insulin. But she was a diabetic, so it's like taking insulin. But insulin's also a natural substance in your body. So insulin has actually been a choice for a murder in a couple of cases, nurses in particular, because it's naturally occurring in the body. So nobody's really looking for it, but they usually get caught because nobody's blood sugar is plummeting to 20 without some serious help. So you can tell I put a lot of time into figuring out what naturally occurs in bodies. So what can't you pick up? I think these things through, I'm telling you. Biggest thing you have to do is just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
So yeah. Moving on before the cops start knocking at the front.
Well, like I said, we're still talking crime stuff here. So what is interesting is, of course, there's going to be a connection, a link between fraud and murder. When you think about like fraud as being a motive for murder, you have like murder for hire. So you have someone that's murdering the wife so he can profit from doing, like, let's say, a fraudulent life insurance policy, kind of similar to what we were kind of for this film itself. Or you have the inheritance scams. The woman's poisons her husband. When he was going to receive some inheritance money. And so she thought she was entitled to a portion of that, covering up other crimes, right? So essentially, avoid being imprisoned for some other crime that you've committed. There's definitely reasons where you see fraud as being a motive for murder. So then you also see murder as a means to facilitate fraud too. So you have, murder to, let's say a man kills a woman to continue profiting her. Was it this one guy? I guess he was profiting through her for sex trafficking and then dismembered her body to hide the crime. So you have murder to enable fraud, collect on life insurance policies he created in her name, then found other who actually was using murder methods on crime shows like Dexter to cover up his tracks. There's also kind of fraud-related murder charges where this guy was charged with murder for hire, wire fraud, and other crimes related to a scheme to kill a woman to collect fraudulent life insurance policies. So once again, they're kind of very similar, but there's kind of the motive, I guess, behind it, right? So it's like, I want to defraud you, and because I kind of get caught, I'm going to murder you, versus I'm going to use murder as a way to help defraud somebody or something.
Right.
So slightly different, but still obviously very much related. And then you have that embezzlement piece, and how embezzlement then can lead to the murder. And once again, that's a much more closer personal relationship. And I think that's where you're trying. Let's say murder comes into play because you're trying to prevent from being discovered, right? You don't want to get caught. So because once again, these are people that you're closer to, your boss, coworkers, your family members that are dealing with these finances, or you're trying to eliminate a co-conspirator, right?
Yeah.
Someone else that's working with
So
you.
you can keep a secret of one of yours.
Yep, absolutely. Maybe there's a larger scheme, right? Maybe there's something bigger. And once again, that's another that's just one part of the bigger scheme.
Right.
And then using it as a distraction, right? Like, so, hey, there's a murder over here, but you don't see me robbing a bank over there, right? Like, it's a lesser crime, right, in that sense. So there's going to be less like looking into that. And then, a lot of times the factors that contribute to like violence related to embezzlement relate to like people are just desperate, right? They're acting out of desperation, fear of being the consequences or being caught. There's a breach of trust. And so maybe when you have that breach of trust happen and that betrayal, that could lead to some violence and just activity happen because you're so angry, you're so upset with what happened. And maybe there's shame about it, or there's going to be some punishment and you don't want to have to deal with it. And then just escalation too, right? So it might start very small, but then it escalates larger and larger. And when it becomes like too large to hide, that person might feel very trapped, and then they'll go into very extreme measures. I mean, it's really very interesting on how that all can play out. And there's definitely a number of different cases out there that reflect that. There's the one with Murdaugh. Yeah. So essentially, he was a attorney that was found guilty of murdering his wife and son. And essentially, his legal team argued that as an attempt to distract from his financial crimes, which include embezzling millions from his law firm. Like, why? How would you possibly think like, hey, it's more worthwhile to kill my family, my hand, than to get caught for embezzling money from my job?
And there's a teenage girl that got killed too on the boat. There's a documentary on it. I think it's Netflix. Watch it if you have an opportunity. It is so many twists and turns and so convoluted because it blew up the boat. A teenage girl died in this too. It's everything he did to cover himself, and it seems, you're right, unthinkable. Why would you do this? But it's one of those things. I think once you get started, let's face it, you're already, because embezzlement and financial crimes are considered a crime of moral turpitude. You can't get hired at a bank and whatever. You get checked on that. So by moral turpitude, that means your moral compass is already off anyway. So it really isn't, it seems crazy, but once you're willing to do something, I know there's degrees of crime, I suppose, but once you're willing to do one thing, once your moral compass is off, and you're willing, how far are you willing to go? Some people, to me, it's like saying people are crazy if they commit murder. I think that's a given.
It's kind of like the escalation, right? Like you see that in a lot of films too. It's like they were this nice guy, and then they did something so that they're going to help somebody else. Well, then they kind of get caught up in it, and then it gets further and further down the road, and it just escalates higher and higher. And then it becomes, at the end of the day, it's like, what are you thinking? You're not even thinking about anything. You used to be the stand-up person, and now it's just like, we don't even know who you are anymore.
It's over. It's doubling. It's like gambling. You're just doubling down on your losses. You're trying to recoup your losses, and it's just, it takes on a life of its own. But again, there's a really good documentary about this, the Murdaugh murders. If you watch him, it's not really that far. You start to understand. He pretended to be a nice guy about as long as he could. In fact, he's always been, he's slimy and skeezy, always. But he just went down that slippery slope. But if anybody gets a chance to watch, or you get a chance to watch it, it's very enlightening, and it's very sad too. So,
well, another one I saw was for Emily Longs. Once again, like, she's committing murder-suicide by killing her husband and 2 children. Once again, stealing money, embezzling over $600,000 from her employer. Like, once again, it's like how you could get to that point of, and especially I think more for like a mother. Although once again, that's not to guarantee like just because she was a mother, she's a good person or anything like that, or that she even cares about her children. But it's probably even more shocking though, because it's pretty much the same storyline in that sense, right? Although, she killed herself also, I guess. But I think that's the most shocking part of it, right? Is that they're willing to kill others in their own family because of embezzlement.
They justify it. It's all justified in their mind. Yeah, it's because they don't feel like they want them to live with the shame.
Right.
Or, and it's also justified. And but it's like anything, any of these people, when you talk about how do you get in the mind of people like that, of how things can get so out of control so fast. and what would seem insane to somebody else becomes logical and sane to
Yeah.
somebody. And because it's just, like at the end of this, he's like, I'm just going to do my prison time. He probably wouldn't have done that much.
Yeah.
I don't know what 2,000 pounds is, but
Right. Between that
1941.
versus going off and killing people potentially, like obviously, yeah, go to prison for like a very short time
Accountability.
for 2,000 pounds or whatever.
Yeah.
And then
Instead, he's like,
you're digging yourself deeper and deeper and deeper. And at the end of the day, it's even worthwhile.
yeah,
Like you're still in debt.
yeah, you're just digging a bigger hole.
You've now like crossed all these lines and all these relationships that you have, no one trusts you anymore.
Yeah,
You're,
schemes.
yeah.
And we're in relationships, and for what? Again, I'm sure nobody's is signing up to go to prison,
Right.
and he's trying to do everything he can. But let's face it, I don't think the prison term. He's a narcissist. He wants a certain image. He wants to be this image, and once he gets convicted of anything, that image is shot.
It's true.
It goes to a lot of these people. They are all about. I mentioned it in that where like you see a lot of air quote rich people, and they have the homes and the cars, but you start looking at the numbers, a lot of times they are embezzling and committing fraud. A lot of special people you think are fat cats that are stealing from banks and Enron and all of these things.
Yep.
Because they've developed a lifestyle and they have a certain image, and a lot of this is done to protect that image. That's it. They want to look a certain way. They want to be looked at. And the thought of being looked at, being disgraced and looked at in any other way is absolutely more than they can take, because they've just, it happens and it's rife. And like you look at the, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker. This happens a lot of these, these large evangelical where they just tax fraud and all this stuff is rife with it. And their fall from grace is all about image. And just, can you imagine being that worried about how much you looked like to people that you would go through all of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at this point, that's going to wrap us up.
Good one.
Yeah. Very good conversation. Really interesting topic. So today, to summarize the podcast that we did today, we tasted Tall Dark Stranger, which is a Malbec wine from Mendoza, Argentina. I'm not exactly sure of the vineyard. I think it is Tall Dark or something like that.
Remember we talked about maybe after you had paired it with something?
Yeah.
I'll say after about the fourth glass.
It gets much better. Well, it's been braising longer too, so that might have also helped. But it's definitely something where, first taste, don't always go off the first taste. At least have a couple more tastes and then go from there.
And after, a few glasses, it starts to wash down pretty nice.
Yeah. And we paired this wine with the 1941 film Suspicion. And that was directed by Alfred Hitchcock and starred Cary Grant and Joan Fontaine. And this was Hitchcock's first collaboration with Cary Grant, as well as Hitchcock's first approach of both being director and producer for a film. We have Joan Fontaine, who won the Academy Award for Best Actress, and this was the only Oscar that was ever won for a Hitchcock film.
It's a shame.
Yeah, I agree.
Best director.
Yeah, that's very surprising.
Very surprising.
So this film was actually based off of the 1932 novel Before the Fact by Francis Iles. The original ending was much darker, and Hitchcock wanted Johnny to actually be guilty of murdering his wife. Obviously, that is not the case, although there is definitely up for interpretation because you don't know what happens when they get home. Today, we end up talking about fraud, embezzlement, alignment to murder, examples of cases of that. Let's talk about our final thoughts. So Suspicion proves that danger wrapped up in charm is the most dangerous kind.
And sometimes the scariest monsters are ones that wear tuxedos.
So beware of that term, I think. It's definitely something to consider.
Yes.
So this brings us to the end of this podcast episode. Remember to check out this episode's accessory reel as we drink and comment while watching the film together. If you enjoy the Booby Trap podcast, please like, share, follow, interact with us on your various listening apps, social media channels. We've also curated a Spotify music playlist and YouTube video channel for each episode. Be sure to check those out. For a full vintage vibe, check out the radio adaptations of Essentially, they provided radio versions of the story. Go ahead, go to our website, boobytrappodcast.podbean.com. You can access all these channels and be in touch with us. Please share the episode with fellow fans of film, wine, and a little mischief. And if there's a wine or movie that you'd love us to pair next, please let us know. We're always on the lookout for our next dangerous pairings.
And finally, before we go, this episode's teaser is to be answered on social media. When doubt takes hold, can love endure? Or does the truth always tear it apart? Oh my God, it's a New Order song. I love this one. I love New Order.
Well, until next time, keep your corks tight, your glasses full, and be suspicious of charming spouses. Cheers!